What if I told you the food you eat today can change how your genes behave tomorrow, and that the gut microbes are the ones sending those signals? This isn't futuristic, this is happening in your body right now. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 3 ways your microbiome directly talks to your genes, the nutrients that support that relationship, and the ones that completely disrupt it. You've been conditioned to think your genes are fixed, that what you inherited is what you're stuck with, but your genes respond to signals. And your microbiome is one of the biggest sources of those signals. Right now, most people are sending the wrong ones. I'm Dr. Rachel Sarah Brown, and after 23 years in medicine, I'm working with hundreds of people with Crohn's, colitis, gut inflammation, and other complex chronic illness. One thing is clear: gut inflammation is not just a gut problem, it's a systems problem. And diet, microbiome, epigenetics is one of the strongest system-level levers we have. I'm going to walk you through the 3 major epigenetic pathways your microbes influence, the nutrients that matter most, and exactly what to do starting tonight. So point 1 is that your microbiome talks to your genes through epigenetics. Your microbes are not passive, they produce metabolites, especially short-chain fatty acids, and these directly modify how your genes behave. They do this through different mechanisms such as DNA methylation, histone modification, and microRNAs. And this means the state of your microbiome influences inflammation, immune tolerance, gut barrier repair, and metabolic regulation. Your microbes aren't just digesting food, they're rewriting your biology. Studies show that low butyrate changes histone acetylation. Dysbiosis, or having unfavorable proportion of gut bacteria, in and of itself alters microRNA patterns, and short-chain fatty acid depletion shifts methylation. This is all signaling in the body, and this is well-established physiology. Your DNA is the piano, epigenetics is the pianist deciding the melody, and your microbiome is whispering instructions to that piano player every second. If your microbiome is depleted, your epigenetic pianist is playing the wrong song. So how do we influence the microbiome? That's the big question. The fastest lever is often the simplest. So diet is one of the master switches, not the only one, but it is a master switch that shapes your microbiome. Food is one of the biggest modifiable inputs that transforms microbial composition in the gut. And here we're talking about fiber, polyphenols, fermented foods, vitamin and nutrient-rich diets increase microbial diversity, and ultra-processed foods, low-fiber diets, and food emulsifiers, such as carboxymethylcellulose, decrease diversity and increase inflammation and damage the gut barrier. So you're not just feeding yourself, you're feeding trillions of microbes who decide what's happening in your gut tomorrow. And we must remember that the gut, when we think of gut, we often think of bacteria, but in fact there are fungi, there are many other microorganisms in there. Polysorbate 80 and carboxymethylcellulose increase gut permeability, and Western diets decrease the short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. So plant diversity increases butyrate, and your microbes respond to what you eat fast. Are most of your meals beige, soft, and ultra-processed? Do you go days with little to no fiber variety? Do fermented foods rarely touch your plate? If yes, your microbiome could be starving, and so are your epigenetic pathways. But food isn't the only input. One hormone nutrient regulator has an outsized effect on both your microbes and your genes. And what I'm talking about here is vitamin D, because vitamin D is a microbiome epigenetic regulator. Vitamin D acts through the VDR receptor, which controls immune function, gut barrier integrity, antimicrobial peptides, Paneth cell function, autophagy, and apoptosis, so programmed cell death and cellular cleanup. Vitamin D deficiency is strongly associated with gut dysbiosis, increased permeability, and inflammation. And vitamin D is not a vitamin, in fact, it's a hormone. In your gut, it behaves like a gene-regulating hormone. And VDR, the receptor, regulates different aspects of gut health, such as defensins, tight junction proteins, and immune tolerance. Deficiency shifts microbial composition and increases gut fragility. Ask yourself, how much safe sun exposure did I actually get during the summer or warmer months? Was I covered up or wearing lots of sunscreen that blocked my skin's ability to make vitamin D from cholesterol? I personally do not think that taking a vitamin D3 supplement is a substitute for safe sun exposure. And do I have enough cholesterol to produce vitamin D and I have every other steroid hormone my body relies on? That's another big question. If you can't answer those questions clearly, that's your clue. But vitamin D isn't the only nutrient that affects both microbes and gene expression. 2 minerals can help or harm depending on balance. In fact, all the minerals matter, but just for simplicity today, we'll focus on a few of them. So iron, zinc, and magnesium can help our heart depending on the balance of these minerals because they regulate microbial composition, inflammation, and epigenetic processes. But both deficiency and excessive amounts of these minerals are disruptive. So iron deficiency leads to low diversity and weakened immunity. Iron excess supports harmful bacteria and raises calprotectin. Zinc deficiency leads to poor barrier repair, dysbiosis, and low tolerance. And too much zinc worsens infections in studies. Now, magnesium deficiency, this is a huge one because this leads to permeability and low short-chain fatty acids. And magnesium, too much, on the other hand, disturbs microbial balance. So more isn't always better, although to be honest, most people are magnesium deficient, especially if you're in a stressed state. Balance is what we're looking for ultimately, though, when it comes to minerals. Iron alters methylation of oxidative stress pathways, and zinc-dependent enzymes regulate histones and transcription. That's a lot of big words, but basically this is all about how your genes are expressed. Magnesium shifts short-chain fatty acid production, and the dose and timing matter. So what I would suggest is to stop megadosing minerals just in case. Using supplements instead of foundations, ignoring gut changes after starting something new. All of those, if you don't have, what's the right term for it? Just a logical and well thought out strategy, piling too much in all at once can end up being counterproductive. So you may want to start testing before supplementing, but actually I would say just use food first nutrient strategies, correcting real deficiencies gently, not aggressively, and this leads to the most important connection of all. Short-chain fatty acids are the bridge between diet, the microbiome, and our gene expression, epigenetics. Short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, are the key reason your microbiome has such powerful effects on gene expression. Butyrate fuels colonocytes, so the gut cell wall. It strengthens tight junctions, it increases histone acetylation, supports T regulatory cells, which are super important in IBD, and it lowers inflammatory cytokines, as well as boosting GLP-1. We've heard a lot about that recently, haven't we? And it also enhances metabolic flexibility. So if you want better gene expression, you need better fermentation. Short-chain fatty acid levels predict inflammatory resilience better than many standard markers. So this means having enough fiber to feed those good gut microbes, and this will increase short-chain fatty acids. It means improving gene regulation as you do that, although some people need to exclude fiber for a while if they have major endotoxin-producing gut bacteria, and that's another story. And this is why you may need to work one-on-one with somebody who knows what they're doing. Short-chain fatty acids are text messages from your microbes to your genes. That's the best way to think of it. So repair, reduce inflammation, strengthen the barrier. Not having enough short-chain fatty acids means no messages. So tonight, add 1 extra serving of fiber-rich plants to dinner. You may need to work up to including more fiber in your diet, especially if it causes bloating or pain, because that could be a signal of dysbiosis. Keep it cooked if your gut is reactive, or even see if local fruit serves you better. Avoid ultra-processed foods. Tomorrow morning, get natural light in the morning. Short-chain fatty acid production responds within days, and our gut health is controlled by our light environment. We want to flatten the disruptors, support the producers, and gene expression begins shifting immediately. Your diet shapes your microbiome shapes your metabolites, and your metabolites shape your gene expression, and that shapes inflammation, barrier integrity, immune tolerance, and long-term disease risk. You are not stuck with your genetic cards. Lastly, remember that fear is a low vibrational state, and healing requires energy.